So I'm assuming you've already watched Dr. Stevens' videos about binomial probability distribution, and what I'd like to show you is how do you answer some of these questions on WebAssign. Okay, so to make sure, I'm just going to reiterate some of the stuff you probably already know, so I'm sorry if it's a repeat. A binomial probability distribution can be used when we only have two different outcomes, and flipping a coin is a good way to talk about that. And you're always going to have a fixed number of trials. So in this case, I'm flipping a coin, once and recording how many times it comes up heads. And there's only two outcomes. Either it's a true or a false. In this case, it's a head or a tail, and we want to record the number of heads or the probability of getting a certain number of heads. And then, because we know the sum of all the events in a probability distribution has to be 1. That's something we learned last week. I know that the probability of getting 0 heads, well, let's see, if I'm flipping a coin, that means getting tails. So there's one way out of 2 possibilities that I'm going to have 0 heads, and that's 50%. I did that, I showed that up in the graph. And then there's the probability of getting 1 heads, and that's the most I'm going to have if I'm flipping one coin, is also one way out of 2. Okay, so that's a pretty plain, nothing too exciting going on here with this distribution. But you notice with the bars, and if I wanted to know what's the probability of getting 0 heads, I could just look at the graph or use some technology to figure that out. So if I'm flipping 2 coins, it's a little more involved, and what I did is I made a tree diagram to help us out. So here's the one from the first one coin, here's the first coin, and then depending on what happens with that, the second coin is also could come up heads or tails, and that independence from the first roll is another criteria for a binomial distribution. So I just repeated it for the second coin, so these represent the possible outcomes for the second coin. And then I just went across, and let's see, if it goes this route, I get 2 heads. If it goes this route, I get 1. If I go this route, I get 1 head, and then this route, I get 0 heads. So there's 4 different outcomes, and so there's one way that it comes up 0 heads, so 1 out of 4 is 0.25. 2 ways to get 1 head, so that's 2 out of 4, and that's where the 0.5 came from. And then again, to get 2 heads, there's only one way, 1 out of 4, 0.25. Okay, that's from the next graph. I couldn't get rid of it here. So now I'm up to 3 coins, and again, here's my tree diagram. Here's the first coin, here's the outcomes for the second coin, and here's the outcomes for the third coin. And if I trace those paths, I'm going to get 3 heads out of the 3 coins. This way will only give me 2. This way will only give me 2. This way will only give me that 1 head. And then 2 heads, 1 head, 1 head again, and 0 heads. So I'm counting 8 different outcomes now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what's the probability of getting 0 heads, all tails? There's only one way that can happen out of the 8, and that's where I got the 0.125. What's the probability of getting 1 head out of the 3 coins? Well, I'm counting 3 of them, 3 different possibilities. So 3 out of 8, and of course that expressed as a decimal is 0.375. Same thing for the probability of getting 2 heads. Well, there's the 1, 2, 3 ways, so it's the same as the probability of getting 1 head. And then back down to the probability of getting 3 heads. There's only one way that occurs out of the 8. Okay, now as you can see, if I were to go to 4 coins, that's going to get, my tree diagram is going to get very large. And what happens right now, we've been dealing with probabilities that's 0.5. There's an even chance of them happening either way. There can be other probabilities and still be a binomial probability distribution. So what I'm going to try to do is go to another video and use this on-screen calculator and show you how to run that. That'll take the place of a graphing calculator in case you don't have one. Okay?